There are people sitting in most companies right now who could be doing far more than they are. It's not because they lack talent. They're still doing the work. They're meeting deadlines. They're attending meetings and contributing. In other words, on the surface, things look fine. But over time, you begin to notice that there's been some changes. That individual stops bringing ideas forward like they used to. They don't take the initiative that they used to. They do what's asked, but not much more. And as you reflect back on it now, you realize you've been feeling this for a while. Hi, I'm James Mayhew, and this is the Leadership in 5 podcast, High Performers. Now, every leader wants a team that's filled with high performers. These are people who don't just complete tasks, but they actually expand what's possible. They're people who notice things early. They make good decisions without needing permission, and they raise the level of the work all around them. They're people who bring wise discernment. They bring creativity and confidence and energy to the room. And that desire to find high performers, it makes total sense. See, as a high performer yourself, you believe that not only is it possible, but without a doubt, you reason that this is how it should be. But this is also where things can get a little complicated. Long before a resume is written or an interview is conducted, most leaders already have a picture in their head, a sense of what a high performer to them looks like, and sounds like, feels like, acts like. Founders like this are scanning for it constantly. They're looking for it during interviews, throughout meetings and day-to-day work, often without realizing just how much that picture is shaping what they see. They're even looking for it outside of the workplace. I've had many conversations with founders who talk about great people that work for others, and man, someday I'd love to have them work for me. And that's why so many leaders eventually run into something they can't quite explain. They bring highly capable people into the organization, people with the experience, the intelligence, and real ability, and yet over time, something just never really unlocks with them. The work does get done, but the spark that was expected, it never really shows up. And that person's initiative just feels thinner than it should. Their creativity stays closer to the surface, and the level of ownership that you were so excited about, it just never really took hold. Again, on the surface, nothing's obviously wrong. No one's failing. No one is exhibiting toxic behaviors or attitudes. And yet the result falls short of what the team and you had hoped for. Now, this is usually the moment when quiet assumptions start to harden. And you think to yourself, maybe this person just isn't who we thought they were. Maybe high performers are rarer than we want to admit. Or maybe this is just how teams work once you grow past a certain size. But what rarely gets examined is a simpler, harder question that you do not want to miss. What if high performance isn't something that you find, but something that gets created or even suppressed by the environment people work in? Now that question changes everything, because if performance is conditional rather than fixed, then leadership behavior matters more than most of us were ever taught. Not in a moral sense, but in a practical one. Things like how work is framed, what gets reinforced or ignored, what happens when someone takes a risk. Now, don't misunderstand the message here. This isn't about placing blame on leaders, and it's not about trying to diagnose the behaviors of employees. It's about understanding how much capability already exists inside most teams, but how often it goes unused. Not because people lack talent, but because the environment never fully invites it out. This podcast exists to explore that reality. Not through motivation, not through labels or personality types, not through tidy frameworks, but through careful observation, lived experiences, and honest cause and effect. We'll look at moments that leaders recognize immediately, moments they've been in themselves, and slow them down long enough to see what's really happening beneath the surface. You won't always get answers right away. Sometimes the work is learning to see clearly before deciding what needs to change. But if you care about building teams where people don't just perform, but fully show up with their ability, their creativity, that great judgment, and that confidence, all of that being intact, well, this work is for you. That's the lens we'll use going forward, and that's what we're thinking about today.